The Washington Post is reporting that the Pentagon could submit employees to random polygraph or lie detector testing in a bid to prevent leaks. It could also require thousands of staff to sign non-disclosure agreements. Well, since taking office, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has fired several senior Pentagon officials, accusing them of leaking to the media. The Washington Post says the new proposed measures are outlined in internal documents. The Pentagon's chief spokesperson has called the Post's report, quote, untrue and irresponsible. And our coverage continues now with one of the reporters who worked on that story. Alex Horton is a national security reporter for the Washington Post. Alex, it's good to have you with us. We know that the Defense Secretary, War Secretary Hegseth, he already polygraphed his own aides this past summer. So is this just Hegseth doubling down?
Yeah, we think this is a lot more broad than these like targeted one-off, investigations into his inner circle. Our reporting shows that this polygraph and an NDA regime, as currently planned, it's not fully finalized yet, but the current plan is for everyone, all civilians, all military personnel, all contractors within the Office of the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Staff to be subject to these. And that's at least 5,000 people. And that doesn't include contractors, of which we don't know how many there are. So it could be, several hundred more than that.
Wow. I mean, 5,000 staffers, that is not a narrow circle. Isn't this essentially everyone with access to real information?
Yeah, the documents we've seen and the officials we spoke to, nothing indicates that there's any caveats or exceptions to this. The documents simply say everyone within those two offices. So that would include Secretary Hegseth himself, General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. This would be every single person, whether a four-star general, people who work with us at the press office, people who work in operations, administrative aides, anyone you can think of. There's no parameters, no exceptions, no restrictions on anyone, according to the documents we have.
And we're talking about polygraph tests, we're talking about non-disclosure agreements. What is the point of these measures at the end of the day?
Well, we already do know that there are already longstanding restrictions and limitations on what you can share with people outside of your line of work, whether that's your spouse or reporters like myself. So there are already these agreements that you have and you're subject to punishment. So a lot of those go with restrictions on talking about classified or sensitive information. But this is much broader than that. And this goes all the way to just information that wasn't cleared for release. So that could be, what the secretary is having for lunch, as innocuous as that. If it's not cleared by someone, theoretically in public affairs or other positions, then that opens up people to be liable for releasing that information. It seems to be targeted for people who are speaking to us. They already have informally and implicitly and explicitly limited Pentagon reporters access not only to the building, but they are tightening the circle of people who have information, including public affairs officers. So this seems to be another iteration of those restrictions and that tightening of information all around the department.
I'm going to ask you about reporters and all of this in just a moment, but I want to stick with the lie detector test for a moment. I mean, if these polygraph tests, if they are introduced, how effective are they really going to be? I mean, I was reading that even the National Academy of Sciences says that polygraphs are unreliable.
That's right. They have a spotty, vague history of, they're not admissible in certain courts. If you're nervous, you can pop them, even if you have nothing wrong. So there's a lot of controversy around them. Are they effective or not? But in this administration and in this building, it's really besides the point if they're accurate and fair and do what you want them to do. People we spoke to who have served as attorneys in the building, people who have worked in the building, people who are familiar with these restrictions and other ways to restrict information. This appears to be a deterrent. something to scare the people who work there, instead of merely just enforcing the already existing rules and regulations on leaking information or disclosing information. So this is more about getting everyone in line, to toe the line, to make sure they're not speaking to us and speaking to others. Like the inspectors general, for instance. This isn't about what's fair and what's accurate and what is reliable. This is about sending a message.
Alex, how dependent are journalists on leaks coming out of the Pentagon? I mean, would this story that we're talking about, would it be possible without them?
Yes, this is a good meta example of something we wouldn't be able to report without people on the inside who are telling us things that are true and black and white. We've had pushback from the Pentagon Public Affairs on this story, saying it's inaccurate. But as we wrote in the story, we see the document. It exists. It's not. This isn't a tooth fairy situation where you can believe it or not. It's just the way it is. So when we have access to these documents and we see them ourselves, that gives us a lot more ability to press forward, to understand the specifics of these decisions. So we're very reliant on people coming forward, speaking about what they see, what they do, because if we just relied on official, on the record, public affairs information, of course, that's subject to spin, that's subject to, at times what I would call propaganda and political messaging, rather than the straight up honest truth, candor about what's going on with the United States military.
All right. Alex Horton with the Washington Post. Alex, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and sharing your reporting with us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.